In my last video, I did a green Zenithal Prime on this model using the airbrush. Today, we're going to finish painting him. I have been painting models for Infinity for a while now, and one of my armies is Yu Qing. This model here is my Xian, and as you can see, it's got a very striking green power armor with red cloth and white trim, with a gun that isn't the usual metal kind of colors. I went for a futuristic style with the weaponry so that it would reflect them being the high-tech nation that they are. Yu Qing have a lot of heavy infantry and they best their opponents with greater technology and heavier armor. In that way, I wanted their armor and their color scheme to show their power and their confidence, and I thought like a very bright scheme would really help in portraying that. The Xian was completely hand painted, and I have not tried painting a model that has been airbrushed before. So now with this model being just airbrushed the green for the power armor to save me time, I'm now going to hand paint the rest of the details in and compare this Imperial Agent to the Xian we looked at before. So to get started on this model, I had to put in all of the base colors. That meant I had to paint all of the cloth red. Any mechanical areas of the armor that I wanted to look like metal, I painted black, and anywhere on his cloaks where I had trim, I painted up white, along with the gun as well. With the base coats all finished, I just added a red wash to all of his cloth to try and give depth to the color. Thanks to the airbrush, most of the head was already finished. All I had to do now was add the yellow for the eyes. There were only a few parts of the model that I painted black. Now it was time to go over those with varying shades of grey, going from a very dark grey to a lighter grey, and just blending them across so it gives the impression that they are metal. Coming back to the cloak, I put in its first highlight, which was just a lighter shade of red, just to highlight the areas where I thought the light was going to catch the fabric. Before continuing with doing more highlights, I decided I have to do something about that long tail that comes out of the helmet. Not sure what to do with it, I decided to make it a pure metal. As we didn't have much pure metal on the model anyway, it would be good to contrast against the bright green and the bright red. So I just started by painting it black. I then started applying all my highlights, starting off with a very dark grey with a very large surface area, and then working up to white into a smaller and smaller surface area to try and give it a shine. It was then time to go back and highlight the cloth some more, so I prepared some red orange and a very light orange, and I applied the red orange to many of the areas that I thought would catch the most light, and then I'd highlight this one step further with the lighter orange. Now coming to the gun, because I base coated it white, it doesn't have any depth. I added a brown wash over the whole of it so that it really falls into the recesses. I'll leave that to dry and then I can come back to that later. With most of the model complete, I decided to try and take on the sword. This is always a little bit of a difficult one as I'm trying to do a power sword and trying to show a nice shine across it. To do this, I chose a light blue to white. I blended the colors on my wet palette a little bit, and then I just started blending the colors across. Started off with the strongest level of blue across the whole sword. I reduced the surface area that I was actually covering with the lighter and lighter colors, and this created a nice blend going from a strong blue up to white. With the blade of the sword complete, it was time to actually do the hilt. I decided to keep this one very simple, so I just painted it black and then scaled up through my greys to a white, so it just looked like it was shining metal. This left us with the gun to finish off, and I reapplied white to all of the areas of the gun that didn't have the recesses. This kept the brown wash in those recesses, but the brown wash isn't very strong. It just gives it a little bit of depth so the whole gun isn't just a pure white. My last finishing touches to the model was to add just a little blue onto the gun where it looks like there's a little button, and also to reapply the white to all of the trim of the cloth. I did also try to apply a black wash to some of the recesses on the armor to try and give it extra depth, but it wasn't quite applying how I wanted, and so to avoid any damage to the paint job, I just stopped there. All that was left to do after that was the base, and I tried to keep it very simple. I just painted it black, heavily dry brushed a dark grey, added a brown wash to that, and then when that was dry, lightly dry brushed a lighter grey over the top. And And then for the ring of the base, I did it in a dark grey with a white 180-degree arc at the front for playing Infinity. Now you may have just noticed there, the tail from the head isn't in some of those shots. It fell off as I was painting, which was really annoying, but once I finished all the model I stuck him back on and it was okay. And here we have the finished model. I was pretty happy with how it all turned out once I'd finished hand painting the areas that I needed to. The armor still popped nicely and the hand painted details helped that look alright. Now if I compare it to the Xian, I would say that some of the armor doesn't pop as much as the Xian does, because I was able to do a more dynamic range of color gradation because I'm controlling it all with a brush. But to be honest, with all the time that I saved from the Zenithal highlighting of the model, I'm really happy with the result, and I still think it will match the rest of my army really well. So how do you like to approach your models? Do you first do any airbrush work before you go into the hand painting, or do you just prefer to have purely hand painted models? I'd really love to know, so please put your comments down below. Please like and subscribe, and thanks very much for watching. I really don't know how to sign out, so I'm just going to say goodbye.